So Jesus is in fact, the Jesus in the Gospels is in fact the Antichrist. He is the substitute Christ. I know that many of you are just going to stop right there and say, oh, this guy's nuts, he's way off it. But no, this is what Paul said, that man, professing himself wise, they became fools, and they changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image like unto man. Paul says in his writings, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Now, why would he say that if all you had to do was believe that this Jesus figure of the Gospels died for your sins? To believe that God is going to allow you into heaven if you put your faith in a human sacrifice. It's just foolishness. And I know there are places in the New Testament where they seem to glorify foolishness, but this is what Paul says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. The church did make a habit of trying to preach the gospel not to wise people, because wise people could see right through it. This is why the Jews did not accept Jesus as their Messiah. He didn't fit the bill. The real Christ is part of God, and it's inside every single one of us. Just as it says in the first chapter of the Gospel of John, in the beginning was the Word was with God, meaning face to face with God, and this Word was God. Now it does go on to say that this Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, but what they're trying to portray there is the thought that the idea, the concept, has been portrayed in the Gospels as though he were a flesh and blood creature. It doesn't mean that he literally came here to earth. And matter of fact, if he did, he didn't teach us anything that we didn't already know. Paul tells us that the law is a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ. What he meant by that is that even though we are not under the law, that we are under grace, if we follow the principles of the law, that we will bring this Christ to perfection within ourselves. Do you understand? Maybe, maybe not. It's I know, entirely different concept. You've been taught to put your faith in a historical figure. Put your faith and trust for your salvation in a human sacrifice. This is not what God wanted. We read in Jeremiah that lying prophets, the lying scribes, have misled the people. He says plain out that God never gave Moses any instructions for blood sacrifices. This was something that was invented much, much later by the Levite priesthood. Why? So that they did not have to work. Just like Circe, being an animal trainer, did not have to work per se. She could live off of the animals. And so the church wants you to become members and to buy into their doctrine so that they can live off of your donations. So the pastor, when he needs a new car, can just go out and buy a new car. He can do that collection every week and don't want to hear, as Flip Wilson used to say, don't want to hear no change dropping in the bottom of the bucket. He can live off of you. And the church can live off of you. You see? And you're convinced that you need them, when in actuality you don't need them. Christ is right inside you. He is not a figure that died 2,000 years ago. He is inside you. That's what Paul is saying. The law is a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ. Christ in you is the hope of glory. Not hoping that some human being that lived 2,000 years ago is going to miraculously appear inside you because you ate a wafer at communion. He's saying that the Christ is inside you, that we are in fact all divine creatures, that we are part man and part God. The Christ is us, that we can be better than we are, and that we should strive to be better people than we are. But we have this exemplar of a man written for us in the Gospels. And we have contradictions purposely placed within those Gospels by the writers, just as a whistleblower would do, to wake you up. To wake you up so you'll realize this is not literal history that you're reading. The Christ is within you. He is inside everyone. He is not a figure that died 2,000 years ago. That is a false image. And just as we read in Romans, Paul was saying that man had done this in the past, and he puts it again as a future event in the apocalypse. John tells us, or whoever the writer of Revelation tells us, that this satanic image of the beast that was wounded and did live is to be worshipped by everyone. You see, it's the same image. The church tells us that this false Antichrist is some figure that's going to come and do everything that Jesus did in the past. He's going to do everything again to fool people. Well, the point is that that image was set up 2,000 years ago, and it has been fooling people all this time. The substitute Christ, the Antichrist, the person that died in your place. Well, you don't go to heaven to be with God. We don't return to be with God because of something that Jesus Christ as a historical character did. We will be with God after we have brought that Christ to perfection that is within us. We go to heaven not because of what Christ did, but because of who we are. We are divine creatures. We are going to return back to our former state when we die. Not because of something that Jesus did, not because of something some historical character did 2,000 years ago, not something that this false image is portrayed as doing in the Gospels, but simply because of who we are. Because of who we are. And this is what the church doesn't want you to know. Thanks for listening.